was not exactly in conformity with the Nazi economic program. Mises was talking about the international division of labor and how the market is the best example of human cooperation across borders, and what a wondrous thing it is that somehow we can take resources from all over the place and without any central direction we can create wealth. And what an amazing, wonderful thing this is. Well, you know, it's not exactly what the autarkic Nazi party wants to hear. So they destroyed his papers and his library. He fled to the United States, where he arrived in 1940 in his late 50s, almost empty-handed, not speaking a word of English, and with no paid university position, at a time when every semi-competent, every boob, every Marxist could find some employment. There's Mises, one of the great economic geniuses of all time, and yet he went on to be as productive, if not more productive, than ever. His great treatise, Human Action, 1949, is a fantastic bestseller, even though it's 900 pages. Mises was an extraordinary genius whose work is now still being studied and remembered at a time when all those nobodies who were getting hired and welcomed over him have long since been forgotten. Well, Mises, after whom the institute I work for, the Ludwig von Mises Institute, is named, in Human Action gives a great analogy for what's happening in the economy when, in fact, you're playing havoc with interest rates. He says, let's imagine the entire economy as being a master builder, building a house, and he's got a supply of bricks that he thinks is larger than it actually is. And let's, for the sake of argument, say these are all the bricks in the whole economy. Well, it's better for him to discover this error earlier rather than later, because if he discovers it earlier, well, he's only squandered so many of them, and he's only wasted so much of his time. But if he discovers his error as he's putting on the last brick, well, this is a disaster. He's wasted an awful lot more labor time. This house, part of it may have to be demolished at this point, if not the whole thing. Whereas if he discovers the error sooner, well, he can go back to his blueprint, he can cross things off, change things around, make the best of the situation. But notice what would not help him. Notice what would not help this master builder if we simply got him drunk and said, hey, you know, keep on building. Well, yeah, then, hey, look, he'll be happy. It'll look like an economic boom, right? He's working, right? He's building. This is an economic boom, right? Well, is the house any more unbuildable, unfinishable than it was before, any less than it was before? Of course not. He still can't finish it. But now he's going to be misled into continuing even longer. Well, that's what happens to the economy every time people say the cure for low interest rate problems is even lower interest rates. Because in effect, you're saying to the economy, sure, you've started off on investment projects that can't possibly be completed. The physical resources don't exist to finish them. Keep doing that. How about start some more? That's what you're doing when you say we need more credit pumped into the economy. No, we don't. We need the opposite. We need the exact opposite of that. And what Mises' example also shows, and I know this is easy to take out of context and hostile people can interpret it the wrong way, but I'm speaking to people of goodwill, not hacks and propagandists, when I say that the recession period, the recession phase, as painful as it can be, is actually when we are restored to health. Because look at the master builder example. The recession period is when his error comes to light. And he says, wait a minute, I'm engaged in an unsustainable project here. I either have to go back and scale back my expectations or abandon this project and move into something else. That's a good thing. Because, in fact, the bad part was the boom. When he was allocating resources wrongly, when he was squandering them on projects the economy doesn't have the resources to finish, that was bad. That impoverishes us because a lot of these resources cannot be recovered, and so we are that much the poorer. So the recession is when we say, all right, wait a minute, we've done a lot of stupid things we shouldn't have done, and now we need to let the market price system sort out what's profitable, what's sound, what's a bubble project, what needs to be abandoned, and we'll just clean all this out and start again on a firm foundation. That's what the recession accomplishes, and it can be short and swift if the government doesn't interfere in it. Now, we've just lived through the classic example of what happens when you have an economic downturn and the authorities try to inflate their way out of it, create more money, pump it into the banking system, push interest rates down. Because remember the dot-com boom of the late 1990s where you had these insane companies where, you know, they had no customers, nobody barely knew what they were making if anything, and yet people were thinking they were going to get rich investing in these companies. A crazy sort of boom that eventually went bust around 2000. Well, going into 2001, Alan Greenspan decided, you know, I'm sick of this whole economic downturn thing. It's time to laugh again, to quote Homer Simpson. We need to pump money into this economy and get interest rates down, and that'll stimulate things again. Well, in fact, he did that. We had 11 rate cuts in 2001, and this is when he really started being called the maestro, because, wow, this man, this mighty overlord before whom we are